Scotland's Finance Minister Shona Robison recently announced the nation's first credit rating and its intention to issue bonds to raise money for capital investment. Now, this might sound like a positive step forward, but why might it also present a problem? Firstly, Scotland lacks a central bank and its own currency and exists as a devolved entity with the bulk of real power over our economy and resources residing in London. Also, crucially, when we talk about borrowing in a Scottish context compared to a UK context, the difference is stark. Why? When the UK government spends, despite what economic commentators tell you, it doesn't rely on private investors foregoing their savings. Instead, new money is injected into the economy. The issuance of sterling bonds, or gilts as they're called, comes after. And these gilts are issued solely as a means of financial housekeeping, not as a means of financing its spending. They are not debt in any real sense. As such, the UK, as the monopoly issuer of sterling, has zero risk of defaulting on that debt. Borrowing in the devolved context is a very different story. As a user of the currency, the Scottish Government definitely will be borrowing money from the private sector. Unlike the UK government or any other national government which issue their own currency, there is a real default risk, and over time investors are likely to demand a higher rate of interest given the perceived increased risk. Ratings agencies are also likely to revise how they view Scotland's financial position, especially if there is no guarantee by the Bank of England that it would act as guarantor for Scottish debt, something which wouldn't be a problem if we had our own central bank. But who are these ratings agencies, and what do they actually do? Or what are they supposed to do? In theory, they are supposed to provide investors with an impartial assessment of the financial health of governments, corporations, and financial organisations. But in reality, remember The Big Short? The movie correctly portrays these entities in hock to the financial establishment. On the eve of the global financial crisis of 2008, they awarded AAA ratings to major banks whose balance sheets were stuffed with junk loans, their rationale being that if they failed to give companies top ratings, they would just go to another ratings agency that would. These companies don't promote discipline in the financial establishment. They are the financial establishment. As such, they are antagonistic to progressive public policies. This is why any nation wishing to embark on a progressive and expansionary budget has its credit rating swiftly downgraded, even when there is zero risk of that nation defaulting. The ratings agencies are a stick which the financial establishment uses to beat governments into fiscal submission. And that brings us to our next point, independence. What happens when or if Scotland starts campaigning for independence on a well-being ticket with the prospect of using its own sovereign currency? What will happen to our credit rating? It will most certainly be downgraded, seen as a risky venture into the unknown, and a situation made worse if the Scottish Government has accumulated debt in what will ultimately be a foreign currency post-independence. This will unnecessarily provide ample and very welcome ammunition to the beleaguered London imperial media machine. Of course, a future Scottish Government could decide to placate the ratings agencies by guaranteeing a programme of fiscal austerity. They might also decide to keep sterling, turning Scotland into a London vassal, attracting financial vultures to mop up our assets. We've already seen such dystopian moves with the wholesale adoption of free ports and special economic zones. These kinds of policies may keep the ratings agencies happy for a time. But you have to ask, is that a version of an independent Scotland you would want? So why is Scotland, as a devolved entity with such limited powers, resorting to this course of action, especially when our resources are being extracted and taken away for free? Is it just a well-intended act of ignorance? Is it something else? We ask, because this threatens to have negative consequences for Scotland down the line. A serious push towards independence with the intention of bringing our resources into the public domain will inevitably incur the wrath of Western ideologues. It's a fight Scotland will have to face, and win. Attempting to placate the neoliberal establishment is a race to the bottom, and one we desperately need to avoid. Finally, if Scotland is unable to persuade the Westminster government to pursue desperately needed expansive economic policies, then we should pursue independence as a matter of urgency, with our own sovereign currency and central bank as a top priority.